DogWorks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
Start your day tomorrow with The Daily Dog with Michelle Forto, the morning podcast on DogWorks Radio. Apple Podcast reviewer Patty Christensen calls it funny, smart, and filled with all the info I want to know about dogs. I love this show. Wake up with The Daily Dog. Available on DogWorks Radio on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your shows.
Radio Free Palmer 89.5 KVRF presents Mushing Radio, hosted by Robert Forto. Mushing Radio is about dog-powered sports, living in the Great White North, and mushing. Visit our website at mushingradio.com. Here is your host, Robert Forto.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto from Mushing Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site, and you can find us over on dogworksradio.com. Be sure to check us out on social media by searching DogWorks Radio. And today I am joined by a musher calling in from Two Rivers, Alaska. Her name is Marie Troshynski. Marie, how's it going?
It's great. How are you, Robert?
I am well. Thank you for joining us today. Can you do us a favor and introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you're all about, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Marie Troshynski. I live up here in Two Rivers. I started my kennel officially last year in Two Rivers, and my kennel is called ATAO Kennel, A-T-A-O Kennel, and that stands for Adventure, Truth, Accountability, and Onward, which is kind of my kennel philosophy. I've been mushing for 17 years. I've handled for a lot of people all over the state, but last year I decided I finally needed to kind of do things on my own terms, so I started ATAO, and that's where we're at.
That is excellent, and I know in your bio you had worked with Martin Bucer back in the day. Can you tell us a little bit about working for those sort of world-class kennels and how that helped you to where you stand today with your own kennel?
Oh, absolutely. I got started with Martin. I was really fortunate that we were family friends with the Boozers, and when I was 14, I asked Martin if he thought I could run the junior Iditarod, and he didn't even answer me. He just picked up his cell phone and called Iditarod headquarters and signed me up for the junior Iditarod, and that was kind of his way of teaching. He just said, okay, you're going now. He taught me not just how to go onward, really, but also to have excellent care for the dogs. It was a world-class education, and I really learned from the ground up. So I was really fortunate to get to run a yearling team of his in the first junior Iditarod I ever did. It was amazing. I wish I could run that team again. I as a young musher didn't know what I had in my hands there. It was pretty awesome.
That is awesome. And you know what, Marie, you did it right. So many people come up and just get a pack of dogs, whether they're rescues or whatever, and try to give it a go at it. And they find that they stumble a lot because they don't have the experience and the education and or the dogs that are able to do what they want to do. So I would imagine that's great advice to new mushers is to do something like that, especially with a firm mentorship. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think handling is a really good way to see what you're going to be getting into. Some people think that it's all glory and epic, mountain summits, but that's a really small fraction of what mushing is. Mostly it's scooping poop and a lot of hard work, which is great too, but definitely tougher than some people might imagine. And doing that handling gives you that basis for understanding not just what it is, but how you want to do it. I've been lucky not just to work for Martin, but I've worked for mushers all over the state. I've seen all different types of mushing dogs, training dogs. I've learned so much. And, I really do believe that you ought to start from, the ground up. And for my own personal philosophy, that's actually why I have a really young team. I started with puppies because I wanted to raise them and train them and work with them so that they feel like they're part of my pack and that we're all a family. That's really important to me and in our goals.
Marie, you brought up a great point where you said working with other mushers, you learned their styles of doing things. Can you tell our listeners who many of them have never been on the back of a dog sled, what exactly that means? How much different is it from working from, world-class musher A to world-class musher B to somebody that's sort of the middle of the pack or somewhere like that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, it's definitely been an interesting experience. Now, I've only worked with distance and mid-distance mushers, so a lot of their styles are the same, but I definitely learned different styles between like mushing really fast. A few of the mushers I've worked for like to move fast. Their teams are really speedy and long-legged. And then a couple of the mushers I've worked for move really, really slow. And I actually found out that I really like that slow training style. It kind of fits me. I'm a short and stocky person, and I kind of go slow too, but I tend to endure and keep going onward. And I like that with the dogs, where they might not move very fast, but they can go a long way. It's kind of the tortoise and the hare situation, and I'm definitely on the tortoise end, but I really like that style. So that was one great thing I learned, and a big difference between some of the kennels I've trained for. But all of them that I've trained for have definitely put dog care first, and have just taught me a lot of ways to specifically care for the dogs, whether that's with vet care or with various ways of socializing or training. I've been really privileged to have that education.
So now you just started your kennel not too long ago. You're up in Two Rivers, which is an excellent place for dog mushing. I would say there's probably just as many mushers up in Two Rivers as there probably is down here in the Knik area and or in the Willow area. So there's also a great community up there as well. Have you embraced that?
Oh my gosh, that's one of the reasons I moved up here. I'm lucky enough. I live next door to Allie Zirkle, and I live down the road from Matt Hall and Ryan Olson, and I'm good friends with a lot of the mushers here in this area. I think it's a great community, and I think there's a lot of young mushers here, which is really nice and fun, and we're all kind of coming up together. I mean, obviously Matt and Ryan are a little bit ahead of me in the competition arena, but it's fun for us all to be planning and dreaming and building together. That's really cool. And my neighborhood that I live in, I'm really surrounded by dogs and by dog yards. And when my yard howls, the whole neighborhood howls. It's pretty cool.
That's very similar to where we're at. I think we have probably 100 or 150 dogs in our little neighborhood, and just about all of us are dog mushers. And I think that's cool because not only are we able to go out and train together, but we can also kind of watch out for each other, like if a dog gets free or whatever. And you don't have to worry about as many things going wrong when there's a bunch of mushers in the same neighborhood. Isn't that right?
Oh, that's totally true. And one thing my friends who are not mushers always ask is, how on earth do you travel? You have 14 animals you're looking after, and it's really nice to live in this area because we kind of all take care of each other's yards if we need to. And like you say, we look out for each other. Absolutely. It's a really tight-knit community. And I've actually mushed down when I worked for Scott Smith down in Willow. I think you guys are in the Willow area, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I've gotten to, that community is also very similar. It's really great to be around a community of mushers. I think that's pretty essential.
So let's fast forward a little bit. In your bio, you say that you're going to be running the Copper Basin, hopefully this year, and running it at a puppy's pace, and then hopefully running Iditarod in 2021, I believe you say. So you're taking it slow, which is the right way to go. Can you tell us about that? What are you training for this year? Or I should say, how are you training for that this year, and what are you doing to prepare for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough, when you have you finally have your own kennel and your own dogs. It's pretty tough not to go to that Iditarod barbecue and sign up. But I'm trying to do this methodically. I've been waiting to run Iditarod almost 20 years now, and I figure this is kind of my shot. And my motto right now is I'm not throwing away my shot. I don't know if you've ever heard Hamilton, but That's from that musical. So I want to do this right. I want to give my dogs absolutely the best run of Iditarod that they can have. And there's a lot of ways to do that. With a small kennel like mine, my opinion is that I want to build them up slowly, let them gain that confidence. And I want to run Iditarod when my team is majority 3 and 4 year olds. I've toyed around with, do I want to run my first Iditarod as a puppy Iditarod? Some people will do that with yearling teams and let them see the trail and go at a slow pace, which of course can also be a lot easier on the musher. But I really think I want to try to do the best I can do my first Iditarod. I don't have huge aspirations. I've got a small kennel, but I really want to go out there and prove to myself what I can do. And that means I have a big, a long-term plan. So I kind of laid out a 5-year plan for myself. Last year I had 2 litters of puppies. And so that was all just puppy socialization, making sure they're happy, a lot of free play. So a lot of running around in safe, open areas. This year, my team is mostly yearlings. So like you said, we're going to be aiming for the Copper Basin. I'm going to be running a puppy schedule, which probably sounds weird to people who don't know what mushing is. That just means we're talking about yearlings. And I'm going to be doing a lot of camping, moving slow, taking a lot of rest at the checkpoints. On the Copper Basin, I think probably I'll do the full runs. I might break up a couple of the longer runs into some camps, but the main thing is a lot of rest in the checkpoints and just making it really positive and fun for them. And then in our day-to-day training, to get to that, it's going to be camping. I'm a big proponent of doing as much camping as possible. I think it's really great for them to get into that rhythm. And I think you can tell a team that hasn't camped in all of their training for the year versus one that's been camping a lot. So that's one thing I'm going to focus on a bunch.
So you had mentioned camping out on the Copper Basin Trail. For folks that don't know, the Copper Basin 300 is arguably one of the toughest mid-distance races here in Alaska, and it's really comparable to what the mushers will see on Iditarod. Have you done other mid-distance races leading up to this, or are you jumping into this with 2 feet and taking on one of the tougher races in the state?
I've actually done the Copper Basin twice. And some of my friends have encouraged me to do a different race because, just to see some new races. But I love the Copper Basin. I think it is just such a blast, beautiful country. It's tough, but I think it's a good obstacle for like my young dogs to be able to overcome if I do it, on a stately pace. So yeah, I actually in 2016, I took 13th in the Copper Basin, which I was pretty proud of. I was running Scott Smith's dogs. That was a pretty great race. And I've also run the Northern Lights 300 twice as well. So I've done 4 300-mile races, and so I don't have too much worry about diving into it without knowing what I'm doing.
So does that mean you're already qualified in terms of your races for Iditarod?
That's kind of a funny story, Robert, because in the whole course of my mushing, the Iditarod has gone back and forth about whether you have to qualify within 2 years or not. So there was a period there where I was running those mid-distance races, but I didn't think I was going to be running Iditarod anytime soon. So I didn't sign up for you have to get a report card for each race. I didn't sign up for the report card. So even though I've gone well above the qualifying miles with the amount of races I've run, I don't have report cards for them all. So I'll just have to get one more report card from Copper Basin. You have to get the 3 report cards. Once I do that, I'll be ready and qualified and good to go. But, there's a reason that they do those qualifiers. And I believe that it's important not just for me to qualify, but kind of for the team to qualify too. I think they have a good system with that qualification to make sure that people are prepared for what they're going to see on the true distance races.
I fully agree, and it sounds like me talking when you talk. I've done so many of those races over the years and either didn't get the report cards or didn't say I was going to qualify or one reason or another. So you sound a whole lot like what I'm trying to do with my plans as well, and that's why I wanted to reach out to you, is because your story sounded so similar. But let's talk a little bit about your dogs, Marie. You said you had a group of puppies last year. Where do your dogs come from? What lines? What do they look like? A lot of people think that every husky looks the same, that sort of Siberian look with the pointy ears and the curly tails. Tell us about your guys.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a hodgepodge because I kind of grew on all of my connections from all of my different handling experiences over the years. My two litters from last year. Well, actually, technically, I have dogs from 3 litters from last year, but they're kind of 2 of the same age range. I have 6 dogs who come from Martin Boozer, and they're just pure Boozer lines. Beautiful dogs. In the mushing world, people would be able to point out, oh, that's a Boozer dog. They look houndy, but they do have a little bit of the, on my first litter, it has pointy ears, which for a while he kind of had that houndy floppy ear thing. Now, these pups come from a dog of his named Cloud, who is a black dog with pointy ears. And I've got one pup who looks just like her father, Cloud. And then I have some dogs from, Judy Courier had a litter called the Harry Potter litter, and some friends up here in Two Rivers have crunched some statistics, and I can't say this with authority, but I think they've said that the Harry Potter dogs have been in the top 10 of Iditarod every year for like the past 4 or 5 years, something like that. Pete Kaiser ended up getting a lot of those dogs, and they've had a lot of offspring. So one of my dogs is Hooch, like Madam Hooch from Harry Potter. She was actually my kennel matriarch, and she had her last litter of puppies. I got one of those puppies, and her name is Ophelia. Ophelia looks like a big red wolf. She is I think she looks unusual for a husky. She's like a 70-pound female. She's the biggest female Alaskan husky I've seen. She's really smart. Her father is Clyde from Scott Smith. And Clyde and Hooch were in Scott's 10th place Iditarod team in 2016. So really great leaders. So it's kind of a mix from the more husky side with Hooch and Clyde, and all those guys look a little bit more husky-ish, and kind of the houndy side with the Boozer dogs. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. They all have long legs and a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, for sure. And you said that you have only 14 dogs. Is that right?
Yeah, Robert, and 2 of them, Hooch, and then another dog, Bonnie, are retired now. So I only have 12 racing dogs this season. I was going to have another litter of puppies, but I decided I want to breed out of the dogs I have, at least the female, and I want to see which of the females who are prospective mamas. I want to see which of them does best this year. None of them have been tested. They're all young. Now, the ones I'm going to breed are not my yearlings. I have 4 3-year-olds, so they're going to be 3 this year. So out of them, I'm going to pick one to be a mama to a litter next year. And I was actually kind of happy to hear the Iditarod ruling about the 14 dogs. I was considering running only 14 dogs anyway. I think it's enough. I don't think you need to get up to 16, and it helps me be able to keep a small kennel. A small kennel is really important to me. I think it allows me to give maximum attention and investment to each dog, and I think that allows them to become the best dog they can be. When I worked for Scott Smith in 2016, we trained 17 dogs. And we trained slow and we trained carefully. And I mean, a lot of it was luck, but by the end of that season, none of those dogs were injured or sick or anything. And Scott got to pick which 16 he wanted out of that 17. And he ended up taking 10th place. So I've seen it work. And I do know that, luck can be a factor, but I really believe that a small kennel is key, definitely for myself.
It's great that you said that about the 14 dog rule in Iditarod. We just talked about that here on the show an episode or 2 ago, and we were talking about how detrimental that can be because a lot of people do not have those dogs to fill the teams, and they've had to borrow 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 dogs to fill out their teams, and sometimes that is more of a detriment than it is to a positive side because they're running dogs that they quote-unquote don't know when they get out there on the Iditarod Trail. But now with a smaller pool of dogs to choose from and then a smaller number to start with, a lot of that can be taken away, can't it?
Yeah, and I mean, just sort of even, I totally agree with the, pulling in dogs you don't know. Sometimes it happens, and you hopefully find a kennel that has similar philosophies and training as you, but that is a little tricky. I think the team bond is so important. The other thing with the numbers, in my opinion, is, it's going to make things a little easier for the musher. You have 8 less feet that you're dealing with right from the start. But another thing is that it's how many fewer dogs that could, potentially be dropped and have to be taken care of by the race overall. I mean, I think the Quest has been successfully, using 14 dog teams for years. So I think it's a good move. I was very pleased to see that it had happened.
So, Marie, let's talk a little bit about camping. For our listeners, when they think of camp, they think of going out and setting up a tent and hanging out and drinking beers and just doing your typical human-type camp. Can you describe what it's like to camp with a team of dogs out on the trail for several days? What does some of that entail? It's not all fun and games for the person, is it?
Yeah, and I always forget when I invite friends to go camping with the dogs that they always end up kind of shocked about it. When we would do multi-day camping trips, when the dog team stops working, when they stop, your work starts. You have a lot to do to take care of that team. Their job is to lay down and eat, but you have to make sure you as the musher have to make sure you're making them a nice bed with straw, you're cooking them food or serving up food that's prepared for them. You're checking their feet over. That's really important to make sure everybody looks okay, checking their muscles over. I really believe in massage, so I do a lot of massage when I'm camping. And then usually you're not going to, camping for the dogs is not usually large chunks of time. You're likely to, in training, be camping for maybe 3 hours at a time. So by the time you do all of your chores, and then you might have time to sit down for like half an hour, or if you're a good, efficient musher, then you should have time to sit down for a good hour. But then you got to start again. You got to put the booties back on, maybe clean up bowls, and some people will water, do this and that. You have a lot of chores to take care of those, take care of that team, make sure they're doing the best they can do. So when you're camping, it's not very luxurious, especially camping and training, doing those short camps. You're probably just going to end up maybe sitting on the sled for a second if you're getting some rest and eating a granola bar or something. I have done some camping with fellow mushers where we'll go and make a bonfire. My favorite thing to do during that is we don't make a very big bonfire because we don't have time, but we'll make enough of a fire to cook a can of SpaghettiOs. And for some reason, that's really satisfying to me. So that's kind of my treat when I'm camping out there. But there's no tent usually. You're not getting a lot of human luxury going on. The whole point is to make sure the dogs are comfortable, bedded down, and getting their rest.
It's funny you say that about tents. If we can come full circle here, you had talked about working with Martin Bucer when you first started out, and now we're talking about camping and all the chores. I believe it was on Iditarod last year that he was using a little tent beside his sled. That's relatively rare, isn't it?
Oh my God, it's so funny. So he, I think he found that on eBay or something. It's like a kid's pop-up tent. I actually want to get one. It seems, he says it gives him the best, night's sleep. But he just has that little bit of a divide from the, in the checkpoints, there's a lot of busyness, or even if you're camping on the trail on a race, people are passing you by. He says it's really nice. And it's just a teeny tiny pop-up tent. So he's really proud of it. I think it's kind of cool. I want to check out and see if I can find something like that. The other thing I've thought about, and I do this, sometimes I'll sleep inside my sled. I'm pretty short, so I can fit inside even a little sled bag. But I thought about trying to build something where I could make almost like a pop-up tent come out of the sled bag or something.
Right, but as you said, there's not a whole lot of sleeping there. Typically, as you mentioned, it takes an hour or so when you get into camp, and then potentially an hour or so when you get ready to go, depending on what your chores are. And if you're just doing those short checkpoint runs, whether you're staying in there for the mandatory time or even the minimum, you don't have a whole lot of time to be luxurious in whatever you're doing. Typically, like you said, eating a granola bar or heating up some food or whatever you're doing, and then you're back rocking and rolling. So let's talk a little bit about what else is happening this year, Marie. You talked about the Copper Basin. Are you going to be running any other races, or are you just going to stick to this one race and a lot of these camping trips?
Well, I'd sure love to run another race, but I know it's probably a shock to people, but mushing costs a lot of money. So I definitely am aiming for the Copper Basin, and hopefully I'll be able to do some of the local Two Rivers races. There's some great races around here. We've got the Two Rivers Solstice Run, and then there's a 100 / 200. You can do either. So I'll probably do both of those races. And so that'll be great. I would actually love to do another race. I think the Northern Lights race, even though it's a race I've run multiple times, I think it's really great for puppies. It's good. You see the first part of the Iditarod Trail. They've got a really great, they've got kind of like a mentorship program that's really cool. So I really like that race a lot. So yeah, I would definitely love to run other races, but we'll kind of have to see where finances are and see how that goes. I mean, the main focus, the races are really fun for me. If I can get a race for the puppies to see the environment of the race, that's almost the most important thing of the race, is to see the environment, to see all the other dogs and the excitement, and to make that a positive experience. If I can give them that at least a couple times with the local races in the Copper Basin, then that's a success for them. Everything else is kind of icing on the cake and more for human fun. So definitely we'll keep focusing on the camping and really good quality training runs around here.
So, Marie, we have just a couple of minutes left, and I know you mentioned financing and mushing being very expensive, and for anybody that's ever done that is probably nodding their head right now when you said that. But you're going to go do something a little bit different than a lot of people do for fundraising, and you're starting a new campaign relatively soon. Do you want to tell people about that?
Yeah, so that's actually active now. And so I have a campaign on Patreon, which some people might not know what that is. It's a place where you can give a monthly pledge, and in return, you get access to certain things. So I have different levels of the pledge you can give. You can give $1 a month, you can give $5 a month, and all the way up to like $32 a month, and you get different cool things. So one thing, the $1 a month, you get access to some exclusive photos. For my $5 a month tracker, Troshynski tracker, I call it, I'm going to have a spot tracker, and you can actually watch all of my training runs live on the spot tracker, as well as my races with my spot tracker. A lot of races give trackers, but this will be my own one, so you can follow even just me. So there's some cool things on there. You can go to patreon.com. So that's patreon.com /ATAO Kennel. Or you can just go to patreon.com and look up ATAO Kennel. So I'm pretty excited for that. Later on, we're going to do something called Be a Buddy, where you can be a buddy to one of the dogs in the kennel. And that's going to be a monthly thing too. And you'll get entered to be in a drawing every month. And if you win and your dog wins, then we'll give that dog a biscuit on video, and we'll send you a cool care package. So there's some fun things going on. We're trying to do some different stuff. We have a lot of video and a lot of photography on our site at ataokennel.com. So be sure to check that out. And we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We're all over the place.
Excellent. So, Marie, I have one final question for you. I asked this to most of the mushers that are on our show, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say for your piece of advice. So my question to you is, for that person that's just starting out, whether they have one or two dogs and want to do a bike jaw race, or they potentially want to run Iditarod or the Yukon Quest one day, what is your one piece of advice that you would give them to help them start their road to success?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing to keep in mind, no matter what, if you're just walking your one dog or if you're running a team of 20, is remember that it's fun. Because the thing about dogs is they totally absorb our emotions, and mushing is the place where you have to just keep that great attitude. And if you keep that great attitude, no matter if you have a dachshund at the end of a leash or you got a Malamute and you're trap lining, I think your dogs are going to give back that attitude to you. So that's my one piece of advice. Keep it fun. Keep that spirit of adventure. That's really important. And we always like to say on our posts and stuff at the end of everything, onward. Remember to keep going forward.
Excellent for sure. Marie Troshynski, thanks for joining us today. It was my pleasure. We'll keep in touch, okay?
Thanks so much, Robert. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you. On behalf of my guest today, this is Robert Forto for Mushing Radio. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.
If you like our podcast, there are a few things you can do. You can take a couple of minutes and go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also check out all of our DogWorks Radio sponsors and promotions in our show notes. Another thing you can do is go over to Facebook, like our Facebook page, and one last thing, please tell all of your friends by spreading the word about DogWorks Radio. Thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate you.
DogWorks Radio is produced by Robert Forto. Logo art by Angry Squirrel Studios. DogWorks Radio is produced in conjunction with KVRF 89.7 in Palmer, Alaska.
For dog training advice, you can contact Alaska Dog Works at 907-841-1686 or visit their website at alaskadogworks.com. If you have a show idea or would like to be a guest, please contact us by sending an email to live@dogworksradio.com.